Hey, this is the Antisocial Socialite back at it again. Thanks so much for tuning in. Welcome to all of the new subscribers. If you have not subscribed, what are you waiting for, darling? Hit that subscribe button, smash that notification bell, so when I get to running this mouth, baby, you are in the loop. The piece of audio that you're going to hear is from the OWN network. It was uploaded to YouTube about 2 years ago, and a professional counselor by the name of Spirit is discussing the concept of the Black Superwoman syndrome. There were a lot of good points in there. There were a lot of things that were quite interesting, but there was also some things that I feel like she missed. So we're going to play the audio and I'm going to just chop it up.
Spirit is in the building, and I always learn from her. Kiana, what's going on, Rashawn?
Well, let me tell you, we are breathing and relaxing over here with our favorite certified counselor, Miss Spirit. Of course, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and as women, we know a lot about stress. So we're always looking for ways to live a stress-free life.
And she's here to help us do that. Welcome, Spirit.
Hey,
Happy to have you.
Yes, ma'am.
I was like, I need that.
I know. Special stress.
Special. Body is on point.
Well, I can't do much about that. But I can put the dress on. I need to go to the pop-up spot.
What you can do is help us with this stress.
Yes.
And let's define stress for people. I know what it feels like, but explain it. If we had to explain what stress is, what would
because we throw that word around so
do.
commonly.
We
When
do.
I'm stressed out, I got a lot of stress. But really what stress is the way that the body responds to all of the things that we require it to deal with, okay? So there are good stresses and there are bad stresses, okay? Not all stress is created equally, okay? So good stress, that are things that help us to increase focus. It can give us those endorphins. It can make us really perform at our peak when we're under stress. We get that little bit of nervousness and it gives us that razor sharp precision, right?
Yes.
Okay, but the bad stress. Now this is the one that just makes you just kind of lose it all, okay? Now, and there are two forms of stress. There are the acute stressors, which are like the short-term things. Things like you're stressed out during finals week, or you have a project that's due at work and it's really hard to get through.
Yes.
That's short-term stress. But with chronic stress, that longer stress that we are left to endure for years and years as a result of things like trauma, poverty, racism, chronic illness, those kind of stressors on the body over time really can take a toll and can really do us in.
Speaking of doing us in, we have learned from you in the past
Yeah.
that stress does affect African American women differently.
That it
Or
does.
women of color, period. So why is that?
Well, that's because a lot of women of color are also dealing with what we call the Black Superwoman syndrome. And this is a very real thing. You know, some people go, is it just something that you just, a nickname? But this is a very real thing in mental health that we talk about. And this is an actual syndrome where women deal with 5 major characteristics. The first one with African American women in particular are often that we have to present an image of strength all the time. We pillars of strength, okay? In addition to that, we are taught to suppress our emotions. We feel obligated to be a strong front all the time, no matter what. We also have a resistance to vulnerability of asking help from others. You know, we have to have it all together as women. I can't ask you for help. Are you kidding? I gotta have this.
Right.
The other thing is this motivation to succeed against the odds. We work with very little and we make it work. Okay,
You know
that is
that?
what we do. And last but not least is putting oneself last. We put everyone else before us. And this includes what we call network stress. You hear yourself in this? Yeah, take your tape off.
I am
network
superwoman.
stress.
Right.
And this is what this means is that not only are you stressed out if you have a problem, but if your mother has a problem, if your girlfriend has a problem, if your husband has a problem. Network stress means you feel the impact of everybody else's stress.
What's that called?
It is called the Black Superwoman syndrome.
Okay, so this lady has broken down the therapist Spirit. She started talking about the 5 attributes of this Black Superwoman syndrome. The reason why I picked this is because I do agree to an extent that this is a real syndrome, okay? But what annoyed me about this piece is, once again, as per usual, there is no accountability. Okay, because you've heard her explain pretty much the whole thing. She talks about what stress is. She talks about the 5 types of the five like characteristics of this particular syndrome, but she doesn't actually talk about where it comes from and why we're in the position that we are in. And once again, this is a deflection away from the failing of black women. Okay, everything that she mentioned, from the inability to be vulnerable, from the unwillingness to ask for help, and even pressures to support other people around us, this is something that is put on us by older women. This is kind of like another older women give younger women lower expectations, sisterhood of failure. It's like almost a series right now, okay? Because when you are a woman, or when you are growing up as a young girl, especially one of the things she mentioned was, black women have to do a lot with very little. Now, if you live in the West, America, the UK, parts of Europe, I'm really sorry, you are not in abject poverty. You are not digging in the ground, walking for miles carrying a pot of water on your head with no shoes on your feet. I mean, education is sometimes free up to the point of entry. I mean, here, even a degree is free at the point of entry. Obviously, you come out with a huge amount of debt, but you are able to go to university for free if you qualify. You're not in a desperate situation where you're homeless. I mean, the Western world, because of feminism, women and children are catered for. So this idea that we're doing a lot with very little is just nothing more than a victimization argument. It's a way to kind of imply that the woman has no part to play in the current situation that she's in, you see. And it's frustrating when I hear this, because again, these are huge platforms, these are older women that people are looking up to, and it's just propaganda. This is why I say to you, these female content creators, a lot of them are not really your friend, because if you're a woman in the West with very little to work with, you have to ask yourself, why are you in that position? Okay? And it always goes back to parents, it goes back to family, it goes back to our mothers, because our mothers are the ones who should have married well, so that we were not struggling the way a lot of black women have to struggle. This is not generational curse, this is generational carelessness, okay? You have people coming up through poverty, through struggle. They're embedded with this mentality, or this mentality is embedded in them, that you have to always work hard, everything has to be hard, no one gets anything easy, life is not easy. These are the kind of things that we hear on a constant basis. Not only is it reinforced through the things that people tell us, it's reinforced in our day-to-day living because there is a struggle. So we grow up with this mentality, life cannot be more than this. And a lot of people have heard of the concept of the battlefield of the mind. Once your mind is fixed in a certain frame, it becomes quite hard to escape that mentality if you're not careful. And for most people who are not, basically given the permission to dream and to aspire and to reach for something higher than what they were born into, they just repeat the cycle, because they often stay around the same types of people and they stay in the same type of environment. So obviously they're going to be influenced in the same type of way. Okay, so again, what she said was very interesting, but it reeked of this victimhood mentality, where it's like, oh, us poor black women, we're always having to work with so little. But how come other races, the people have very little, but the children go to college and everything's paid off? The parents are buying, I knew a lady, and I mean, obviously times were different because the cost of living was lower. If you had a decent job, you probably had way more disposable income. And she's like, there's like 4 of us, 3 girls and a boy. And like our dad bought all of us a car. I mean, it wasn't like the best car in the world, but it was definitely like something to get them started. They all had the toys they wanted. They each had a bicycle. I mean, it seems very small, like a car, a bicycle, which is not a very, it's not a hugely expensive item, but it is huge to a child. It means that, the concept of an abundant life and being able to have all the things you want is your normal mindset. It's your normal frame of mind. It's not a lack mentality. It's an abundance mindset, because you're used to, through the parents investing in you and giving you the things you want. It raises your level of expectation out of life and your belief that what you want you can actually have. It's like she's just jumped, from the ground to the 4th rung of a ladder or something. It's like, why did you completely ignore the first 3 runs? Why did you ignore the fact that in a lot of these families, because there's no father, the children, especially the daughters, they become the friend of the mother. A lot of adult responsibility gets put on these daughters, whether it's to help around the house, whether it's to help with siblings, whether it's to bring in an income, or just to be some type of confidant and best friend to the mother who doesn't have a partner. So a lot of emotional baggage gets dumped on the daughter because the mother is not able to manage this. Often we're talking about a significant number of black people are raised in single parent families. So obviously this is a big part of the issue. If you're raised in a single parent household, you're more likely to be raised in poverty, which means your expectation out of life and kind of relishing in how much you can do with so little, it's become one of those badges of honor that we really need to talk about. It's like, forget about burning the cape. We need to burn some of these badges of honor that we esteem so highly, like being a single mother, Yes, once upon a time, making it as a single mother was really praised because it was so uncommon, and these people often were in a situation where it was very strange circumstances. They were widowed and or their man was extremely abusive or something, and they did good without the support of the father of the children. And black women really took it on board of how proud they were that they were able to raise these children with no men, until it became like a staple of the community. But it's not a badge of honor, it's a destructive force. Okay? So black women growing up in impoverished situations and then patting themselves on the back because they were able to do so much with so little, that's not a cycle of wealth. That's a cycle of poverty that keeps people poor, because the goal should be that every generation is doing better than the one before. But if you keep repeating the same mistakes of the generation before, then obviously you're never going to get out of that vicious poverty cycle. So when she's saying we're expected to do so much with so little, once again, there's no accountability, there's no recognition of the fact that the reason why these women are growing up unable to be emotionally available because their mothers were not maybe loving and tender or even there to care for them. The reason why they have such a lack mentality, the reason why they feel the need to be in codependent relationships. That's basically what she's saying when she says, network stress. Adult responsibilities have now been transferred to the child. So the child is forced to grow up sooner than their years. And they also derive a sense of identity from being a helper. So now they go into their adult relationships, their adult romantic relationships, trying to save and help people. You see, this is why I don't deal with a lot of female YouTubers, because they never really go to the heart of the matter. Why do black women feel the need to save people? It's not because black men are broken, it's because they grow up in households where this is deemed normal. They watch their mothers taking on broke men. They see their mothers being the sole breadwinner and the provider, holding down 2 jobs and paying all the bills while they have a man who sits on the couch. There's often no man in the picture. Then they have sons who they coddle. You know, they don't have what it takes to push the son to be a masculine, productive man. So they end up taking care of him like he's a baby. Sometimes the son becomes a pseudo husband. You know, he's going to be the man of the house. And, you know, just in the same way that a mother can befriend a daughter, and, you know, the two of them become like sisters almost. So now the daughter is no longer allowed to be a child. Sometimes the son can also become the husband. Okay, so the daughters in these environments grow up watching a woman who claims to be strong, who claims to be independent, who's taking care of men, who's holding down, you know, a job and things like this, or holding down multiple jobs and being the main earner in the household. And so they take this as an example of strength. They go out into the world and they believe, to be a good woman, I need to be saving you, I need to be coddling you, I need to be working hard to provide for you. And, you know, this is never what's talked about. Who broke these men? And why do you feel the need to save them? The answer always comes back to the same thing, which is the mother of the family. Okay, so this whole idea of codependency or burning the cape, there's truth to it in terms of, and we'll get to that in a minute, the ability to say no. But as you've grown up in this kind of dysfunction, you've always been forced to say yes. You know, I can't do this because my mother needs me. I can't do that because my brother needs me. My sister needs me. I can't be involved in that because I've got to go to work because my family need that support. You're always being forced to say yes, and then you're kind of being guilt tripped. I mean, this is the other point where she says network stress. If there's only a few of you who are succeeding, a lot of people are going to become accustomed to coming to you for help. You know, whether it's practical help because you have space, resources, or cash. And they'll always guilt trip you. I mean, we're talking also a lot about colorism at the moment. We're talking a lot about black on black crime. What is one of the common things that a lot of these women say? You should see me as your sister. How many times did April Mason say in the interview that she did, the lady who was in the supermarket and tried to tell some random man who's looting to put the stuff down? This theme keeps coming through. You should see me as your sister, your mother. You don't have empathy because I am a random black woman, but you don't see me as somebody who could be one of the relatives in your family. So black women are the ones who perpetuate this mentality that you need to go around saving everybody and you need to wear yourself thin helping people. And sometimes that erroneous expectation is what also causes them to assume people should do that for them. It's black women that sow the seeds in everybody's mind that we all owe each other. But in societies where they understand everybody has to work to make their own money and build themselves up and be accountable, people are not sitting back waiting for a handout. It sounds harsh to say. Even the lady who was thrown in the dumpster, she called her friend and she said, "Why did you leave me? Why didn't you tell me this area was like this? Why didn't you call me sooner?" And to an extent she's got a point, because that's supposed to be your friend. But at the same time, we do not hear you saying anything about the way you behaved that caused you to be in that position. There is no personal accountability with a lot of these black women. It's just you, the black man, my friend, my family. And these expectations are sewn into black women by other black women. If you have a mother who's always relying upon you to do things, she is setting you up to now be like, anytime a woman says I need something, you should just run and do it. And the sad thing is, she says the husband, when the husband comes in, you know, you're taking on his problem. Well, as a wife, that's what you're there for. You're supposed to be that shoulder to lean on. You're supposed to be the one creating an environment of peace. We talked about this before, ease and stillness. You're supposed to be making that house into a home. So when it comes on to your husband, if you have a husband, the order is guard your husband, kids, maybe a pet, your job, your education. That's the order. Your time and energy as a spouse and a helpmeet is supposed to be to ease his stress. And in return, he's creating an environment and a lifestyle for you that eases your stress. Because although housework is not that fun and taking care of kids is, probably not always easy, because we know children can be challenging, they have a lot of energy or whatever. But which would you really prefer? Going to cafes and, mummy play dates and taking the kids to play with each other over at the park, and you cook a meal and clean around the house? Or would you like to do 60 hours a week slaving outside of the home? I'm sure most women, if they really were honest, they would like just to be at home with the kids, just doing feminine girly things around the house with their children for their spouse. So the man in return is going to provide you with the financial security and the practical security and support. You see, because a lot of females don't grow up in an environment where that is their benchmark, all they have to go on is the example set by their mothers. And instead of saying there was something wrong with the way I was raised, because it's been normalized, they just go and repeat the same cycle. So when this lady's talking about the network stress, again, if everybody is managing their own life and their own business, network stress will be less, because the more people who are working and being productive and able to support themselves, the less they will need to be supported by others. But when you have a culture that raises dysfunctional, dependent people, you're always going to have the few being expected to carry the burden of the many. So the fact that she didn't touch on the root of the problem, it's kind of like you're giving people who make excuses and want to be in a victim mindset ammunition to put forth an argument. But it's sad that the argument is not rooted. You got to go back. You've got to go back and talk about, how did we get like this? Why do we think like this? Because normal femininity, healthy femininity, and wounded femininity is a fine line. If you're passionate and emotional and you're taking on other people's burdens, that's part of being a receiver. Being receptive is part of the female nature. Being sensitive, being emotional, maybe being intuitive, these are part of the female nature. But when your femininity is broken because you haven't been allowed to cultivate it naturally, then you're going to end up overloading yourself with things that you shouldn't be, because you're raised to actually be this hardened person who's always dealing with challenge after challenge.
Oh, look it up. It's a very real
I don't
thing.
have to look it up.
Is there a pill or prescription? Honey, listen, lots of therapy. We got to help take the capes off. That's what we got to do.
And so what can we do to help relieve this stress, this superwoman syndrome thing? Because the 5 things that you said,
you got them all.
Yes, I have
Listen, I got women that say that they have capes of every color. They got them bedazzled, speckled, everywhere.
Okay, what do we need to do?
Okay, so first and foremost, we have to look for ways to relieve this stress.
Got
it. Now, really easy things. You can focus on activities that surround or focus on breath work.
Yes.
Things like yoga, exercise, running. You're looking to relax and control your breath.
Yes, ma'am.
Remember, it all starts with the breath. The other thing is that we have to learn to say no.
Come on, no.
No is a complete sentence. It needs no explanation. No. N-O, no. Okay? Also, you gotta have more sex. This is one of my favorite ones on the list. Have more sex. And now, this is the ironic thing, though. Is usually when we're stressed, what do? We have less sex.
Yes.
But sex is a great mental health reliever. It's a great physical reliever. It does lots for the body. So pull together with your partner. get that stress relief.
You gotta find a partner first. You gotta get a partner, Spirit.
And last but not least, I can't say it enough. Therapy.
Yes.
Mental health counseling will do you wonders.
Okay, so the next bit, she goes on to talk about ways that you can relieve the stress. You know, exercise is definitely a good way to relieve stress. It's obviously going to, you know, produce a lot of hormones. You get a chance to clear your head because you get out of your environment. So those are good things, you know, so definitely. I didn't like the fact that she said sex. Now, again, if you're a married person, great. You know, we recently just talked about the importance of intimacy in a relationship. So sex being a stress reliever is important. Okay, I said in that video, you know, at the person's core, I have to love you, I have to like you, because obviously I don't want to feel weird if after we've done argued or whatever, we cannot be intimate. You know, intimacy is a part of a marriage. So if I dislike you that much, I cannot be intimate with you. Okay, so it's really crucial that women understand this. But then again, there's going to be some women, they're just a side chick, they're just a baby mama, they're just a girlfriend, they're not even in a committed relationship, and they're also going to be like, well, seeing as I'm stressed, I need to go and get me some sexual relief. And it's like, no, because you now are putting yourself in a position to add to your stress, because you're going to go and pick up any random man thinking that just, you know, a good night between the sheets is going to fix your problems. It's like back in the day when they used to tell you retail therapy was good, and then everybody started getting into debt because every time they felt low, they just went and bought something else they didn't need. So I didn't like that part either. You know, it's just airy-fairy solution. And then therapy is the first one. I mean, she ended on the most important one, maybe because she wants that to stick in people's minds. Therapy is crucial, because if we have these faulty thought processes, we need somebody who's professional to help us unpack those, giving us the permission to say no, to understand why we do the things we do. And then as a result, when we catch ourselves, we can make better choices. So once again, the OWN network doesn't fail to, I'll say this time it is semi-disappoints. There were a lot of good things in there. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Like, share and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.